Welcome again to our show, and thank you for watching. It's you, the viewing audience, who makes our show the #1 show on Cable Access Network. And thank you for your calls, your emails, and your letters, giving us feedback, including critical feedback, either about myself, the host, and I'm your host, Frank Avila, or about our guest or any of the topics that we're discussing. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your support. Also, I want to thank all the staff here, Tony, Pops, William Godomsky, and all the staff at Cable Access Network, CAN TV, that makes this show and all the shows here possible. I want to dedicate this show to Randall Sherman. Randy Sherman, a blessed memory, died in October of 2010. He was the founder and the Secretary-Treasurer of the Illinois Committee for Honest Government, and one of his themes was judicial races. In fact, Illinois Committee for Honest Government endorsed in every judicial race in the state, and Randall Sherman took a lot of pride in that. He had a number of themes he had in life, and he was one of the most loyal friends and political supporters, and very dedicated, of course, to the veterans. He was a member of the Vietnam Veterans Post and Displays, Stamps, Philality. He was the head of the Philality organization, Secretary-Treasurer, and the Compact Show, and of course to politics. That was probably his third theme, and especially judicial races, so people were informed on every race, because most people don't know who's running, they don't know who the judge is, or they think it doesn't impact them. But if you get a speeding ticket, you come before a judge. If you get a criminal case, you go before a judge. Even if it's minor, you got into a fight. If you have to sue somebody, you've been sued, you have a foreclosure. So you interact with the court system more than people want to admit. Even a traffic ticket, speeding ticket, appeals, there's administrative courts. And today we have a very good candidate, a good friend of ours. It's Megan Goldish, and she is running for judge in the 9th Subcircuit. She's going to tell us about what that area is and a little bit about herself, and we highly, strongly encourage you to support her. She's very qualified, she's a very good candidate, and we encourage you to support her and to vote for her if you live in that district. So Megan, boy, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
You know, first tell us where the 9th Judicial Subcircuit is.
Sure. So it covers, in terms of the Chicago wards, it's mostly 49 and 50, and there's pieces of some of the other wards, but the neighborhoods are basically Rogers Park, bits and pieces of Edgewater and Edgebrook and Sauganash, Skokie, Lincolnwood, Niles, Morton Grove, Evanston, Glenview, Wilmette, well, most of Glenview, and most of Winnetka as well. There's a corner of Northfield in there, and there's bits and pieces.
So the 49th and 50th wards in the city, which
Yes.
include the Rogers Park area, the Edgewater, Andersonville, or?
Barely.
Okay. And then Wilmette, Winnetka,
All of Evanston,
all of Evanston,
all of Skokie, all of Niles, all of Morton Grove,
okay,
most of East Glenview, and most of Winnetka, at least southern Winnetka.
And there are 3 positions open, so you could vote
Correct.
for 3 judge positions.
Correct.
So if you see Megan Goldish's name on one of them, try to vote for her, because again, she's qualified. I think she's fair. She'd make a good judge. So Megan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I actually grew up in the Subcircuit. I was raised in Skokie. I went to Fairview North, which no longer exists. It's now all one school with Fairview South, which is, most people refer to it over there, it's the Orange School that's behind Jack's, which is right off Toohey. And then I graduated from Niles West High School, and I'm a proud graduate of the University of Illinois in Champaign. And then I came back here and I studied at Northwestern University School of Law. I did a semester out of the country at Cambridge in England, and now I'm currently an assistant state's attorney. I've been an assistant state's attorney since 1997. This past year I've also had the opportunity, I was appointed as an adjunct faculty member at Northwestern's law school, teaching in the trial advocacy program.
Well, it's a very impressive credentials, because U of I, top 10 school.
Yes.
One of the best schools in Illinois, a great engineering program and other programs there. Northwestern Law School, again, a top tier law school.
Yes.
A lot of big names have come out of there. Jim Thompson and a lot of U.S. attorneys. I think Jim Burns and some others went there.
Jim Burns,
I know they have a wall
Richard
of other
Devine and
hands.
Rita Fry at the same time.
Don Clark Netch.
Don Clark Netch,
Yeah.
Justice Stevens.
Because they have a big wall of all the people there.
Jerry Springer actually is a graduate of Northwestern. But Justice Stevens, as you mentioned, Don Clark Netch, and various, I know that they have a number of lectures.
Some people from Jenner and Block.
A lot of people from Jenner and Block, and a lot of people from Mayor Brown as well. The people that I learned with, sometimes I would learn more even from people raising their hand and asking questions. It's a terrific law school. Its reputation's well earned.
A lot of corporate lawyers. I have a good friend who went there who worked for Baker and McKenzie, and then I think Shefsky and
Freilich.
Shefsky
yes.
and Freilich. So good educational credentials, but combined with growing up in the area, to understand the needs of the area, somebody from the community, and some good experience. You've been how long in the state's attorney's office?
I've been an assistant state's attorney since 1997. I took kind of a different path than most. I started out in our appellate unit, so I filed roughly 23, 24 briefs. I had the opportunity to orally argue, which most times in appellate courts you don't often. They look at the briefs and a decision is made whether a case is going to be affirmed, whether it's going to be overturned. But I had the opportunity to orally argue on a few occasions. And then I went into the domestic violence division, which at the time was brand new. So making law, forming law, issuing orders of protection, some contested, some uncontested, really a new branch of the law at the time. And then I went through the traditional felony trial system. I'm a first chair, which is a supervising attorney in a felony courtroom. Monday through Thursday, we handle rapes, murders, financial crimes, hate crimes, and then every Friday, I'm the first chair who is assigned to oversee the wings courtroom, which is one of the diversion courtrooms. So a little bit different than in the past.
When you say diversion, that's the boot camp program? And
boot camp is one of them. It's more a focus on rehabilitating an offender as opposed to incarceration.
On the drug, on misdemeanor, or even those felony possession sometimes, because even one Xanax, for example, is a felony.
Right.
A case like that recently, just one pill. But you sometimes allow them to go to a rehabilitation program as a deferred sentence.
Exactly. So there's drug school, which is the state's attorney drug school. It's for people who qualify. They don't have an extensive criminal history. The amount of drugs wasn't something that is extensive, nor were they in the process of dealing. And if they complete the program successfully, it doesn't show up on their record. There's also a form of expungible probation. But one of the programs that, some of the programs that have been going on now in the courtroom, they have a veterans call, they have a repeat offender call, they have courtrooms dedicated specifically for elder victims. There's
one courtroom that I'm sure you know about that I wasn't aware until maybe the last 5 years, 4 years. A friend of mine who has a mental illness problem, and he introduced me to a group, an organization called NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness.
Right. And
what I learned and what I've used now for some of my clients is the BCX, I think it's called,
sure.
and mental health court or mental health probation.
Yes.
And they go to the psychiatric evaluation, the BCX.
Yes.
And then sometimes they don't get a sentence, or they go into mental health probation.
Right, and a lot of the factors that determine that are, one, the type of crime that the person is convicted of, or at least accused of, and also their background. And you mentioned, the mental illness until recently didn't get the attention that it clearly deserves. When you look at the population of the jail, you have a number of people who, as you mentioned, BCX, Behavior Clinical Exam, they look at fitness issues for trial, they look at insanity at the time of the offense, but they also do look at treatment options. So the diversion call that I have is WINGS, which is Women in Need of Gender-Specific Services. It's the felony prostitution call, which is all women and transgendered individuals. So most of these women, for example, may have been victims of domestic violence, of sex abuse, of incest, a lot of them have drug addiction problems, and a lot of them are mentally ill. So the program focuses, again, not on the incarceration, but on rehabilitation. So they get career counseling, job counseling, trauma counseling, drug treatment. I had the opportunity to, and from my side, you rarely get to see these programs in action. I went into the jail. They had a glee club, which was terrific. There was a graduation. The judge who handles it is Judge Rosemary Higgins, and she's really, she's taken it upon herself to...
Now, how is the recidivism rates then? Has it improved with some of these programs?
She has been unbelievably successful. It was supposed to be, it was delineated for something like 30, 40 people, and there were 300 women and a few transgendered individuals that it ended up helping. And she's had graduations now. She's had 2 graduations, and I want to say roughly about 20 women in each graduation, meaning that they've completed Sheriff's Day reporting, or the Women's Sheriff's Female Furlough, so where they report to the jail during the day, or sometimes they're in a separate section of the jail where they sleep over there and they are residents there. But that means they've completed successfully their treatment, NA and AA meetings, Prostitutes Anonymous, and they've completed the career counseling. And what Judge Higgins has done is also she's reached out to other various agencies that she knows that people are looking maybe to hire individuals, and it really does something. I remember there was one woman that was talking about she made some kind of barbecue sauce, and it was just her recipe, and she was a very good cook, and she got a job after coming out of this program successfully at I think it's Harold's Chicken, and they liked her barbecue sauce, and they started distributing her barbecue sauce under her name. So here's a woman years before that who had no job. She was a convicted felon. She really, her outlook wasn't what it was. And I think Judge Higgins really took an interest in following a lot of the women that are on the program. And she has a job. She has a business, you know, distributing her own barbecue sauce. And, you know, she's not out on the street. She's not out selling herself. She's not out getting abused. So it's giving somebody a little bit of independence, letting them take it back, and you know, a little bit of their own empowerment. And from my standpoint, what I see Monday through Thursday is a lot different than the nonviolent offenders that I get to see on a Friday. So I think it's a terrific program, and that's really the focus of a lot of the diversion programs, the Veterans Call, the Youth Offender Call, the Repeat Offender Call.
You know, I'm a captain in the Army, and I just got off active duty 2010 to 2012, and I dealt with wounded soldiers, the legal counsel for wounded soldiers in the Pacific region. And there are a lot of soldiers with PTSD, yes, or depression, anxiety, or some other, or sometimes a TBI that could cause some kind of behavioral thing from a more objective traumatic injury. But PTSD, where they could act out or they have some antisocial behaviors.
Right.
So I think it's good to give them a second chance on something minor or something where they don't have a previous criminal history.
Right.
And I think also with the just the drug users, a minor possession, a misdemeanor possession, or even a felony possession that's of a small amount, because the prison is overcrowded, and you know, we heard from, they're kind of arguing, the sheriff and the county board president, right, about the overcrowding. So I think that sending people in that may not need to be directly in prison is a good thing.
And I think that they are choosing to address that, like for something like the Veterans Call, you have someone that has gone off to fight for their country and has been willing to die for their country, and obviously have seen and possibly been involved in a lot of things that are going to affect them mentally for the rest of their lives. And they come back here and they're expected just to meld back into society without any problems. And you're right, and I see usually it's a drug case that most of the veterans pick up, and they look at the criteria. What is the background?
These people do self-medicate, I think.
Sure. And I think knowing that, you know, they're not alone, knowing that there's services available for them, there are certain companies that are looking to support our veterans and who would be hiring, and now they can kind of find each other. It's a very good program. I know they do a lot of stuff. There's somebody over at John Marshall Law School that's also involved with it.
Now, you've done some good things with rehabilitation and with improving recidivism rates and the like. But is there a case on the law and order side, maybe a murderer you put away or a rapist, somebody bad? Because of course we want to give people a second chance. There's a lot of good people maybe that make a mistake or have an addiction or have some issue. But there are some people that need to be put away, and that need for prosecutors and judges who, if the facts are true and being fair, they see the person that they have to be separated from society, unfortunately.
I recently I've usually as the first year in the courtroom I'm assigned to handling most of the murder cases or some of the more serious violent cases. Recently I was one of the prosecutors on it was somewhat of a high-profile murder case. It happened up in Lakeview, and the victim of that case was a very well-liked person in the gay community, and it seemed as though he was targeted by the defendant. And the defendant actually killed him in a restaurant that he had been working in, and it was a very violent murder, and he fled. And then the police investigation began, and it was a community that rallied around the police, and everyone was giving leads to try to find who the offender was. The offender was from out of state, and of course when the pictures, the surveillance video, and the tips, and people talking about where he's from. The police department in his state, he was from southern Indiana, knew who he was because he had a horribly violent background. They managed to arrest him, and he confessed to doing it. He tried to justify it, but it was a very, like I said, a very violent murder. The victim's family, I think, was very appreciative that the person who had done this was apprehended. The brother of the victim had said something that was one of the first times that he had slept through the night since the murder happened after the guy was convicted. And this was a guy that even in the jail while he was awaiting trial was causing problems. He picked up another case for trying to smuggle contraband. He tried to smuggle a gun into the jail in various parts. And he was not stupid. He actually got pretty far in doing that. And he was somebody that was actually fairly well known to the investigators in the jail because he was a dangerous guy. Mm-hmm. So he will be spending the rest of his life in jail. He's earned it. He had a horribly violent background. He was on parole for a very violent offense in Indiana at the time that he did the case here. And it was really, I was very pleased with the outcome. I was very proud of all the work that the people had done on the case. And I think that, like I said, the family, I think, was really appreciative of it. So
it's wonderful, and that's decided an effective prosecutor to use the family, the community, the police, getting the leads, and being fair, doing their due diligence to make sure that they're pursuing the truth on that. So, Megan, why did you run? Why did you decide to run for judge?
I've been dedicating my entire career to a career in public service. Most people that graduated from my law school, it's a heavily, I would say, corporate.
And you could have graduated from Northwestern to a corporate field,
yes.
But you chose the state's attorney that probably is a couple times lower of a salary, probably 2 or 3, 4 times more, depending on how fast you would have risen up in the ranks.
There's no paper towels in the bathroom there. I mean, it's like funny when you go to meetings at some of the law
firms.
firms.
I haven't heard that you have to get your own like legal pads, pens.
Yes, I bring everything, but it's
yeah, some of the big law firms are on these multiple floors with. And they got food there.
We have catering.
And, catering, and it's pretty nice.
We have catering. I have a vending machine.
You do got some. I like some Mexican restaurants, and you're not too far from Oakley either.
Right. We have the Italian restaurants on Oakley, and we're right in Little Village. So
yeah, you have El Milagro over there.
All the good restaurants. Mi Tierra is a big hangout.
Yeah.
But it's
Mi Tierra's great.
Mi Tierra's terrific, and at the time that I was taking class, it was an externship through the law school, and it was the domestic violence division hadn't been formed yet. It was part of the municipal division. And I had terrific bosses there, and at the time Richard Devine was the person in charge, and he chose to expand it, this division. And I was talking with kids who had witnessed horrible things. I had been talking with women who were victims of abuse, and you realize there's all sorts of, well, why does she stay? There's housing, there's immigration, there's just the outright fear. There's also the fact that this is somebody they have children or family with. And the first few times, I'm helping out the best I can as a law clerk, and I'm researching, and I am really learning a lot about people. And I loved the camaraderie. I loved the fact that I was speaking up on behalf of somebody who couldn't speak up on behalf of themselves. I felt like I was doing a great thing. I've continued, at least as much as I'm allowed to be very involved in supporting domestic violence causes in the sense that I do donate, and I've been on host committees of various domestic violence shelters and domestic violence organizations, because for me, I never looked back. So I've dedicated my career to public service. I feel a lot of what I've been doing, even on a daily basis, not just in the wings courtroom, but anybody who's been on felony review, I'm evaluating evidence. I am making sure that both sides are treated fairly, and I would like to continue that as a judge. I would love to continue to serve, a career in public service. So I'm well aware of what happens on both sides of cases, and I know I'd be a very fair and impartial judge. And I think
fairness is the most important thing for a judge.
Agreed.
To be fair. Because, of course, there's other categories that are important, and the knowledge of the law, perhaps as a prerequisite to being fair, because you have to be fair of something. Right. But I think fairness is the most important thing, to not have a bias even though you were a state's attorney, not to have a bias for the state's attorney or the prosecutors, or have a bias for client or a different type of person, whoever it was, your same gender or religion or ethnic group or whatever,
right.
to kind of be this very fair and colorblind to it.
Right, and you know, you bring up an interesting point, because a lot of people think state's attorneys, their job is to get a conviction. The defense attorney, their job is to get their client off of a conviction. But by law, my job is to seek justice. Sometimes that's not a conviction. Sometimes that's not charging somebody. It's very challenging. Sometimes I've been in a police station at 3 o'clock in the morning and been surrounded by victims' family members or police officers who thought a charge should go forward, and it was my educated opinion that at that time it shouldn't. And I have to look at both sides fairly.
I have been in the rare occasion as an attorney on the other side where I have had the state's attorney drop charges in about 3 occasions. There's a very ethical state's attorney who didn't want to pursue charges in that case. She was a prosecutor in Judge Wattis's room. I'll leave the name, but she was a very ethical person. Very.
We're all ethical.
Yeah, but I was very impressed by her courage and her, you know, she really understood the situation. She didn't want to pursue a particular case.
Yeah, and we're not looking for business. I mean, look how, unfortunately, there's a lot of crime in the county. So
a lot of crime.
A lot of crime. So you know, my job's to seek justice. That means for both sides.
Right.
A defense attorney's.
I also think it's important so there's people that get released from a crime and then they go out and do another crime.
Sure.
And they might have been guilty of that crime.
Sure.
And I think that stops, and that's the important of keeping people off the street that are continuing to do antisocial behavior.
Right. When I receive a file and I'm looking at it to perhaps offer somebody a sentence, if he pleads guilty, admits he did it, here's the sentence that I would recommend. I look at things like the person's background, their age, what have they contributed or what have they been doing when they're not committing crimes?
Right.
What's their reason for committing this crime? And also, you know, obviously I'm speaking up on behalf of a victim. So on every case involving a victim, we call, we talk to them, we kind of give them these are the options and pursue a course that is acceptable to the victim side and being fair. I mean, sometimes somebody's charged with a crime that, you know what, there's a little bit of wiggle room in terms of the sentence. This is a 50-year-old man with no background or perhaps a veteran, and this was a blip. You know, it was a mistake and judgment, and everyone's human and that happens. Or sometimes, you know what, this is a violent offender, and every time this offender gets out, there's another crime being committed.
Right.
And that's something I look at, and this is someone that, you know, out of fairness to the community, that I'm speaking up on behalf of. This is not somebody that should be out on the streets.
Now, if you were elected judge, would you want to go to a criminal? I mean, I know they might start you somewhere else.
Quite frankly, I would go wherever they.
Now, have you done civil work at the state's attorney's office?
I've done in the domestic violence division, and even some of what I'm doing now. There were
financial crimes.
And you touch on all the civil. So certainly with financial crimes, with a lot of the domestic violence cases, there were divorce and housing concerns that I didn't even realize I had to deal with as from the criminal side. So there were a lot of civil remedies that I was dealing with, even orders of protection. In fact, when you have an order of protection hearing, it's actually a civil hearing. So the evidentiary rules are a little bit different than in a criminal case, and the standards a little bit different. And even now, dealing with some of the agencies, there's a civil aspect. I would prefer, pursuing the criminal side of things because that's what I'm familiar with. But I have a familiarity with complex litigation, civil cases. My law school really focused more heavily on the civil side of the law because it's a heavily corporate.
And then your experience was heavy on the criminal, so you have experience in both academically and experientially.
Yes.
So let's talk about politics a little bit.
Sure.
So you're running for judge. What does that entail?
It entails I am trying to reach everybody I can in the community.
Going to events, knocking on doors.
Going to events. I'm very involved anyway with a number of bar associations, the Women's Bar Association, Decalogue, which is the Jewish Society of Lawyers, a member of the Chicago Bar Association, a member of the American Bar Association. Some of their programs happen during the day. I can't attend those as much, but I'm very involved, at least with the Women's Bar. I'm involved in the mentoring program. So I have mentees who are students and who are lawyers. And I make sure that they attend various functions in the same sense that it turns out to be a campaign event sometimes, but I think it's a way of reaching a lot of people, not just in the legal community, but in the community. I attend as many things as I can to meet as many people as I can, because you mentioned, you know, it is really important. People sometimes don't know, who are these candidates I'm voting for? Are they qualified? And you touched on it. I 100% agree. People don't realize how much a judge's decision can affect their life, from child care to child support to a driver's license to, you know, your very freedom. So I want people to be able to know what my credentials are. And I'm very proud of the work I've done at the State's Attorney's Office.
So if somebody lives in the 9th Judicial Subcircuit, which means there's a district that you have judges that come out of, separate geographic areas, and you get to vote in that subcircuit, which includes, in your case, the 50th Ward, the 49th Ward, so Edgewater,
Sure.
Rogers Park, Evanston, Niles, Morton Grove, Lincolnwood, Wilmette, Winnetka, part of Glenview, Skokie. So kind of the northern suburban region,
Right.
the tiny bit of the north side of the city. If you live in that area and you like what you hear, and I'm not telling you that you have to, I'm encouraging you, that you might want to vote for him. Now, also, you might want to get involved in the political process and help her knock on doors or go to an event, hold a coffee or whatever else it is. So what is your website and your phone number and your contact information for your campaign?
I encourage you to go to my website, which is megangoldish.com. Megan is M-E-G-A-N, Goldish, Goldish.com.
Do you have a number for your campaign?
Everything's on there. There's a phone number, an email. There's various things about my background, various ways to get involved.
Now it's on the screen, www.megangoldish.com. You can read it there. But if for some reason you couldn't see it properly, www.megangoldish.com, just like it sounds. And if you want to hold a coffee, she can come attend your coffee. You want to knock on doors, you can do that. You want to hold a fundraiser or whatever else you might want to do. Maybe you can do phone banking or just spread the word, friends and family, cards, or whatever else it is. I would encourage you to. And again, learn who all the other candidates are. We're only, you know, our group is only one group. We don't say we're the be-all, end-all. The CBA will make recommendations, as will the ISBA and the Alliance of Lawyers and the different bar associations. And so learn about your judicial candidates. And that's what the late Randall Sherman wanted us to do, and the purpose of the Illinois Committee for Honest Government. So again, any last minute word for our audience?
Yeah, I encourage you to go on my website, look at my ratings, and come out and vote. It's March 18th.
March 18th, 2014. Megan Goldish, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
To our viewing audience, good night and God bless.